Well, I was, depending on the narrative of the person or the perspective of the person, um, I was born out of wedlock, which is a very predominant thing in the African American community, unfortunately. Actually, um, in the Western world, a very high percentage of people are born out of wedlock. It's like 60%. It's very high. But born out of wedlock, mother and father, of course. I come from a background of 20 aunties and uncles, and unfortunately, they were great examples of what not to do with your life. They were either drug addicts, dropouts, convicts. I had one aunt who actually, she went to college and she graduated. However, she got killed by her husband. And I think I may have been 2 or 3 at the time, so I don't really recall her. So in my head, I say I had 20 aunties and uncles, who didn't really do much. They taught me what not to do with my life. So this was maybe around the time of 8 or 9 years old. And here in the States, we have something called, Black History Month. And in Black History Month, I chose to do a report. So each of the students have to do a report on a particular person. I did a report on a black musician by the name of, what's his name? I think William C. Handy. I can't remember if that was his name or not, but I did a black musician, and he was like a trumpet player or something like that. And someone else did a report on a guy named Malcolm X. And I became very interested in the other guy's report. And from that, I bumped into Malcolm X again after being on punishment. And while on punishment, there was a book in my house, and it was the autobiography of Malcolm X. So you're on punishment. What are you going to do? You can't watch TV. You can't go anywhere. You're stuck in your room. So I picked up that book. And when I picked up that book, I saw so many characters that were very close to me. And I liked what I saw. I didn't agree with all of the ideology of Malcolm, but I definitely recognized some of the characters in my aunties and uncles, and I liked how he went from, he switched his own narrative. He went from, having a bad disposition to having a good disposition, and I like that. One of my grandmothers, she was very religious, but outside of her, I didn't know anyone that was religious. When I started, so after, reading the Malcolm book, I think I started really picking up books. A book of any nature, whatever it was, I would pick it up. If it said, this was a little maybe later on, but, if it was like the Bhagavad Gita, the Rig Veda, the I Ching, the Torah, acupuncture, acupressure, yoga, chakras. If it was something that I didn't know about, I would pick it up and I would read it. And then, once I would read a book on, acupuncture, it says something about herbology. I'm like, wait, what's herbology? So that would take me to a herbology book, and I just kept going on and on and on and on and on. And then, of course, at some point, this led, into the religious arena. And again, I was doing the same thing, just picking up books and books and books. And then I started questioning certain ideals, such as something very distinct in my head. I remember going to like a Christian camp. Usually in the summer times, they, Christian communities, they have these things where they do camps and kids go have a ton of fun. And then, they'll learn a little bit about the religion. So I went to a camp, and, we had like fun all day. And then on the way back, the lady was dropping me off, and we started having a conversation about God. And at the time, I guess I identified myself as being Christian. The lady, she was mentioning that God was a certain color, and that just it didn't resonate. Academically, I couldn't defend myself, but it just didn't resonate with me. She said, God was a certain color because he was from here, and people look like this who are from here. And I said, I remember saying to her, no, God is yellow, brown, purple, orange, black, every single color that I could think of. I you know, I knew something that I was sniffing at was more in the right direction than what she was telling me. Although I didn't have the the articulation to be able to explain myself well. So little things like that would was my initial questions into the religious arena. Why would God look like this, or why would God pray to himself, or these kinds of questions, and these led me into picking up other kind of other books that were similar to these types of questions. In my 10th grade year, I think I was 15 or 16, I met a Cambodian brother, and this was in summer school. Summer school is for kids who they don't do so well in school, so they're in summer school for some reason. So I was in summer school, and I told this brother, I said, one day I'm going to be Muslim. And he said, I want to take you somewhere. So he took me to Juma, and I made Shahada that same day. And then the day after, I said, oh, wow. I realized what I did. I said, oh, man, I can't do this anymore. I can't do that. I can't do this. Oh, wow, okay. And, I continued on. For me, I think part of the gift of maybe my family not being religious is I didn't have any deeply rooted ideals. So if I ran across an ideal, it was very easy for me to look at it from 5 or 6 different perspectives, and then go with what I felt was the strongest perspective. So I didn't have anything where it was challenging my ideals. The only thing that I think was a challenge to my ideals was and maybe this wasn't a challenge to my ideals, this was just a challenge to me, my person, myself, my character. When I would read something and I would agree with it, I just say, oh, I have to change this about myself now. But it was a challenge. I found it interesting. It just, each time I would pick up a book, oh, okay, I have to do this now. Oh, I have to do this now. Like, it just was something else I would have to change about myself. But it was making me become a better person. So I wanted to do it, although there was a little of resistance. I grew up in the Western world, so you turn on the TV and everything in the Western world, and then the TV is totally different than the theological world. Well, prior to 16, my mom, she was one of the things she did on the side, she was a seamstress. So she would fix wedding dresses and all different types of clothes. So I would see her rummaging on the sewing machine, and she would leave, and then I would go crazy on the sewing machine, just press the little motor, and I'm a guy, I want to just ramble through stuff. And eventually that kind of led me into having an interest in fashion. And then I had an uncle who was a DJ, and he would have records and he would just play music, and I had an interest in music. It's going pretty good. We are a little behind on schedule, but moving a little quickly. So from 16 to 20, I still was studying, and I continued to do the fashion and music thing, because I didn't know that Islam had certain particular rulings that would maybe completely eliminate my whole interest in music, or eliminate the the type of fashion that I wanted to do. Initially, I went to school for fashion design. I was actually in high school studying fashion design, um, and it later became an issue, and it was definitely was a difficult issue because these were things that I was very passionate about. I mean, I went to college and I spent a lot of money to go to school. I went to London, Milan, Paris. I stayed in these places and did study abroad, for fashion design. So this was something that was very much ingrained into what I felt like I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I might get a call, hey Mark, we need you to do wardrobe styling for X celebrity, and it's going to be on this magazine, or it's going to be in this video or this commercial. And at that point, I started becoming much more religious. So it was okay, do I want to get behind this, and millions of people are going to see this product, and this particular product is completely contrary to what I believe, morally, ethically, and Islamically. So, I had to start, facing these kinds of questions. I graduated college literally while homeless. But I had in my head, all my aunties and uncles, they're dropouts. So in my head, I said, if I don't go to college and if I don't graduate, then my lifestyle is going to be very similar to theirs. So there was nothing that was going to stop me from not graduating college. With seeing the examples of my aunties and uncles and people around me, to me, I think this made me a little bit stronger. So with me being the black sheep of the family and taking upon roles or ideals that they didn't agree with, so they kind of would just let me go. Okay, just let him do his thing. My mom said, she used to use a saying. She said, if it makes him a better person than who he was before, then by all means let him continue. With fashion, I was doing wardrobe styling for a ton of celebrities, a bunch of huge companies, and I said, okay, I have to pull out of this and figure this out and come back when I'm under my own terms. With music, it primarily was, okay, I'm going to walk away from this altogether. With music, I was the VP of A&R for a record label called Uprising Records. They became popular for putting out a group called the Fall Out Boys. Fall Out Boys went I think maybe triple platinum on Island. They're a huge group. I signed a couple of well-known musicians, and again, I was becoming more and more religious. So I kept hearing this thing about music is haram. So initially, I didn't pay much attention to it, and then I came across a couple of lectures, and I started looking at lyrics, because I was trying to match up what they were saying in the lyrics with what I would put visually. So when I did that, I'm just looking at the lyrics like, wow, this is what this person is saying, and if you're trying to match a visual to that, and they're saying something, hold on, like, are you really going to match a visual with what they're saying? So, that, made me that was another thing. Okay, is this something you really want to engage in? These weren't, academic ideals that I had to core with. These were pretty obvious. No, this is wrong. This is not good. You could be an atheist and say, no, this is not good. So I had to kind of back out of that as well. My decision, at least with the one where I had the biggest decision, came from directing music videos. I watched a documentary on music videos and the effects that it had on people. And then I listened to a couple of lectures about music and the effect it had on people. And then I went to a conference that was about music videos, and there was a very famous director that I was good friends with, and he was being questioned by all the people in the audience. Why have you done videos like this? Why are these type of images in these videos? And I'm sitting there watching this, and in my head, I was saying, wow, this is like almost like Judgment Day. He's being asked all of these questions, and he needs to provide answers, and he doesn't have any. And I said, okay, I don't want to be in that. I don't want to be in that position. So I said, what? I'm no longer doing music videos unless it's revolutionary or beneficial to humanity. If it doesn't fit that criteria, I'm not touching it. So that essentially eliminated me doing any type of music video. And this is how Shaitan works. When I made that decision, I got calls that same week from the 4 top musicians in the whole entire world. Hey, we want you to do a music video for this particular song. And I told them, hey, I don't touch anything unless it's beneficial or revolutionary to humanity. Oh, yeah, we got you. Yeah. Okay, send the track over. And I listened to the first maybe 5 or 10 seconds. Oh, no, I can't touch this. I have a wife. I have 2 daughters. I have a mom. I have grandmothers, aunties. What if I do this? How am I going to face them? So that eliminated that essentially. When I became a Muslim, I identified with Sunni ideology because, of course, this is what most people usually do. And then, just me being a studier, eventually I started, looking into Islamic history. But it's my road into Islamic history is very interesting because, as I was studying, I became to accept many different ideals. So I do yoga or I do Tai Chi. I don't find too many Muslims that are into yoga or Tai Chi. I'm into reflexology and herbology. And one of the ideals that I picked up was I became vegetarian. So when I got into college, I think it was maybe 18, 19, I said, I want to become vegetarian. And I became vegetarian. And at a certain point, I said, hey, let me make sure being vegetarian is actually Islamically acceptable. So I went and did the research. I looked at all the different schools of thought, looked at all the different fatwas that were given, about vegetarianism, and I ran across two particular things. There's hadith about, one should eat meat every 40 days, and then there's another one about people who were being practicing extreme aestheticism. There's a guy who was, he wouldn't wear perfume. There's another guy who wouldn't have relations, and then there's another guy who wouldn't eat meat. So I looked into this, and I looked at the fatwas, by the the scholars, and they ruled that one could be vegetarian and be Muslim. So during this time, and I'm looking at the different schools of thought, I run into the Jafari fiqh. And when I ran into the Jafari fiqh, I ended up running into many of the Jafari fiqh ideals, or things that I just completely had no idea about, because I hadn't studied Islamic history at that point, so I didn't know that, that Fatima, unfortunately, she was, she reached her death not too long after the Prophet died. I didn't know about Hassan. I didn't know about Hussein. And I found actually a group who were vegetarian who so happened to be Muslim, who so happened to be Shia. And I said, what is this Shia thing? And who's Hussein? What's all of this about? I never heard about any of these things happening. And the Shia sources, excuse me, the this particular group, they were citing Sunni sources. So they were citing Sunni hadiths. So I said, let me go look at this and make sure what they're saying is correct. So of course I would go look, and it would be right there. I said, oh wow. So then I picked up Peshawar Nights, and picking up Peshawar Nights, you're seeing the study between the two, and I said, okay, all right, I identify with this particular school of thought, and that led me becoming Shia from there. Something that I thought was very interesting was the ideal of the infallibility of prophets, which I was in total agreement with, and then Muta, which I'm totally in agreement with. I understand there's a lot of people who look at the ideal of Muta as like a form of prostitution, or they would, some people, they would rather engage in illegal relationships before they engage in, something like this. From the Western world, coming from where, majority of the population in the States, at least 60%, are born out of wedlock, are born out of illegal relationships. So this particular ideal could potentially solve that problem. So I looked at it very much differently than someone would who's coming from an Islamic country, who's viewing it as, I don't like that ideal. I can't see, for me, I would not entertain marriage without actually entering into a muta first, because a muta, to me, a lot of people in the West, they would identify muta as like, oh, this is an engagement period. Similar, this is how, usually Christians, before they get married, they're engaged, they have an engagement period, and then they get married, beforehand. To me, I identify, the idea of muta as being very similar, a lot more structured, but similar in that nature. I found that idea to be very, very interesting, which was not part of the Sunni ideology. Initially, when I first took my shahada, you have these old men in the masjid, and they want to give you names, and they would say, how about this name? No, I don't like that. I've never been one to take something that I don't like, so I'd say, no, I don't like that. I don't like how it sounds, and it sounds too, it just, what is that? So I eventually, from history, I eventually ran into someone named Mukhtar Thaqafi, and I very much agreed with the ideals that Mukhtar incorporated. I liked that, how he was, how he came from money, and how he was a little entrepreneurial and kind of a businessman. And then I also liked that he was religious, which I kind of felt like I was. And to me, Mukhtar, it's not that similar, but Mukhtar almost sounded like Mark. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take upon, the name Mukhtar, chosen. And then, I believe Ali was the rightfully chosen person by, our Prophet. I've been all over the world, many places: London, Milan, Paris, India, China. Up to that point, I had never been anywhere in the Middle Eastern world. Because one of the things I'm thinking about is safety. Because here in America, anytime you see Iran on TV, usually it's about, somebody getting blown up, someone trying to get nuclear weapons. It's usually all bad, So, and I listen to like independent, I don't even consume major media. I listen to independent, radio, independent, video sources. Even those sources, they don't have, they don't report on, like, Arba'in and, what happens. So I didn't have a really good reference point of what was going to happen there. So I'm thinking about safety, and I asked his brother, hey, how safe is it? And he says to me, he says, brother, I felt more safe in Iraq than I've ever felt anywhere in America. I didn't say this to him, but in my head, I'm thinking, like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And then when I get there, I totally understand what he's talking about, because it's a theocratic society. So theocratic societies, they operate totally different than non-theocratic societies. Um, Prior to going, one of my experiences was, you have this very close relationship with death and your mortality, because in Islam, of course, we have this thing where one should have a will prior to dying. I've traveled to many places. I've never had to prepare a will prior to going somewhere. So I had a will, but it got lost in the computer. So I needed to prepare a will prior to me going to Iraq and Iran. So while I'm preparing this will, it dawns on me, like, hey, you're actually going to Iraq. There's a possibility that you may not come back home. Are you okay with that? I reconciled that by saying, you know what? If I died there are prophets that are buried in this land, and I know there are prophets and imam buried in this land. So if I died there, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the best places to die on the planet Earth. So I was able to reconcile that thought. Okay, what about your wife and kids? Will you be ready not to see them again if you go there? I was able to reconcile that by making sure I I made the most of my time, and it's just the ideal of death, it being in your head, it makes you very serious. You start thinking, it's like every year when you get a year older, you start thinking, okay, have I done the things I wanted to do with my life? Am I at where I want to be? What things should I change about myself? I had these type of ideals going in my head. And then you hear about like when you go, every single step that you make, you receive 1,000 of these type of blessings. You're forgiven 1,000 times on this, and then your status is elevated 1,000 type of times. So you're like, okay, let me at it. I want to go right now. I have some things I need to clear out. um, so I wanted to go by all means. So I go there, and I get there. We fly from LA to Turkey. And then when we get to Turkey, there's a 9-hour layover. Everyone there, they go to sleep. I said, oh, no, no, no. I'm not going to sleep. This is not going to be the flight that I miss. No way. I know where I'm going. I know I'm going here, and Adam is buried there, and Noah is buried here, and Imam Ali is right in between them. No, no, no. I'm not missing this flight. I'm staying up. So I stay up the whole entire time. We fly there. So like two-hour flight afterwards. Soon as we get there, we had to wait a couple of hours. I still didn't have no sleep. So I'm up. At this point, it had to be maybe like close to 36 hours. So I get into Najib. And, when I'm there, I know where I'm at. So I said, oh, no, I'm not going to the hotel. Oh, no, no, no. I'm going straight to go see, Imam Ali. I'm going straight to go see Noah. I'm going straight to see, Prophet Adam. And, when I get there, I go straight there, and I see them, I have that experience. And then when I'm there, very interesting things, start playing out. Some people, they kind of get a whiff of, who I am, where I'm from, And everyone is asking each other where they're from because everyone is speaking different languages. People look a little bit different, but it's a little different when you tell someone you're from America. You were born Christian. You became Sunni, and then from Sunni you became Shia, and then this is the type of work you do. You work with these type of celebrities, and all of a sudden they're saying in their head, why are you Muslim? Why are you here? Why did you become Shia? And or they're asking, some people, we were literally maybe 200 yards from where Imam Ali is buried, and Prophet Adam and Prophet Noah are buried. And I would get questions, oh, what is it like working with this celebrity? And I'm thinking in my head, hey, look at who's buried right down the street. We have 3 of the best of humanity that's ever been created right there. You're asking me about this celebrity? And I've come so far to see them. So it was a very interesting experience for me as well as them, because they wanted to know about where I came from, and I wanted to know about where they were at. They were so close to a source, and then they're looking at me like I'm so close to a source. They kind of we both kind of wanted to trade worlds. Yeah, so it was very, very interesting. And I very much enjoyed, doing the walk. I left initially when I did the walk. This was within the first couple of days of me arriving, so I still had some of my Western ideals in my head. So the group that I went with, they were saying, okay, we're going to get up. We're going to do Salat al-Laylatul, and then after that, we do Fajr, when that comes in, and then we're going to go start walking. And, Salat al-Laylatul, but they were thinking of, leaving around 3 a.m. So in my head, I said, 3 a.m., this is Iraq. It's dark. I'm not walking at 3 a.m. in Iraq, and I can't see like what's coming or going. Oh, I need to be able to see what's coming. If I need to make a quick move or defend myself, I'm not leaving at 3 o'clock. I'm going to leave around 7 o'clock where I can see everything. So, I had in my head, I'm going to do the full entire walk. And I was able to do the full entire walk, alhamdulillah. I walked with 3 other brothers, 2 Iraqis and 1 Pakistani. They were both, born in Iraq and in Pakistan, and then they, grew up in America. And I did the walk with them. We did it in 2 days, and it was a beautiful experience. To me, I think it's probably one of the most revolutionary things that any of humanity could ever do. Period, irregardless of what their ideals are.